From post-pandemic life to the midterm elections.
To summits and celebrations at the White House and life here at the Mecca.
The Sensational Seven of NewsVision is bringing you the top stories about topics that matter to you.
NewsVision starts now.
From the campus of Howard University in Washington, D.C., this is NewsVision, a newscast written, reported, and produced by capstone journalists in the Department of Media, Journalism, and Film.
Good afternoon, I'm Kendall Lanier.
And I'm Milexa Cardona.
Thank you for joining us for our final NewsVision newscast, where we bring you the top stories from Capitol Hill to the capstone of higher education, Howard University.
NewsVision is the capstone course for broadcast journalism seniors at Howard. And Kendall, a lot has happened this semester, from the return to in-person classes post-pandemic to the midterm election and so much more.
You're right, Milexa. This newscast will focus on these stories that matter to the community. We begin with what's been part of the domino effect of the COVID-19 pandemic, a shortage of nurses, those who have really been on the front lines of the pandemic.
The American Nurses Association stated that in 2022, more registered nursing jobs would be available than in any other profession in the U.S. as a result of a national nursing crisis. NewsVision reporter Ashleigh Fields is taking a deeper look at what this means on a local level. Hi, Ashleigh.
Hi, Milexa. The shortage has impacted the waiting time and options for treatment in D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. I went to 2 different hospitals in the area to understand how this crisis has affected staff and patients alike. Doctors have been overwhelmed since the first COVID case in 2020, but it's the nursing shortage that leaves patients feeling neglected.
Well, I live in Maryland, but I come all the way over to Howard because they have a better customer service here. The Southern Maryland Hospital, they leave you in the waiting room for hours, no respect, nothing. It makes you feel like you are not a human being.
In April, HUH nurses went on strike, which garnered international attention.
I came to Howard University Hospital in 1975.
Maven says even then there was a nursing shortage, but now she can make a change.
So what we have is a per diem, in-house per diem pool, which pays a slightly higher hourly rate, and we have been very successful.
In the nation's capital, there are a total of over 16 hospitals and medical centers. Recently, the District of Columbia Nurses Association cited over 95% of nurses as having a struggle with the staffing shortages. While hospitals like Howard University are managing to overcome the crisis, others like Children's National and Washington Medical Center are still working to alleviate stress.
It becomes an issue when we're accepting transfer patients from other hospitals. You always have to have a nurse for the patient, even if you're making more money. It's tough, and it adds another element of stress.
While waiting rooms remain full, 3 million nursing positions remain vacant. Hospitals across the country are making adjustments in hopes of resolving the current shortage. The District of Columbia Nurses Association and others are also working to create better working conditions to improve retention rates. Back to you.
Thanks, Ashleigh. The pandemic also affected education, and while K-12 students returned to fully in-person learning earlier this year, after taking statewide assessments, the student scores declined. Unfortunately, this has been a trend among the nation. Upon the return of fully in-person learning, D.C. public schools look to rebuild skills that were lost during the pandemic. Students took statewide tests earlier this year in the spring for the first time since 2019. The test scores dropped significantly.
I think it just takes more than the resources that students had at home to learn math. You need to be in person, you need to be picking up the language, you need to be making sure that your students are actually doing what you ask them to do. I think parents really struggled with being able to help their students, and the curriculum is not accessible to everyone.
The largest drop in scores were seen mostly in Black and Hispanic students in reading and writing.
At Cardozo Education Campus, every student is a student of color. So when we break it down, we can probably unequivocally say that among our demographic subgroups, English language learners saw the largest drops. And what I mean by that is you have to understand that you have students who were new to the country, had not experienced any form of formal statewide assessment,
As a result of the declining test scores, D.C. Superintendent Christina Grant plans to use $1 billion in federal stimulus funds to reverse this trend. This will include a student tutoring program and the launch of a family resource center for students with disabilities.
What you have to be very careful about is not expecting one lump sum to drastically change the results from one year to the next.
D.C. Superintendent's tutoring plan is expected to serve up to 4,000 students this academic year.
Since the start of this year, Washington, D.C. has also seen its share of juvenile crime, including carjackings, robberies, and overall violent incidences. The Metropolitan Police Department believes the pandemic is to blame. One of their solutions to protect children and make communities less violent has been a teen curfew. There have been more than 1,200 cases of assault with a dangerous weapon recorded in the district this year. Schools and students are constantly being affected by gun violence around the country.
I feel like I knew what to do in high school, but I'm realizing at Georgetown there was no seminar or instructions given on that.
I don't know of any protocol for any active shooter drill.
I think they need to be a lot stricter. I think we need a lot more background checks and regulations regarding who has access to buying guns.
With gun violence on the rise, D.C.'s Criminal Justice Coordinating Council published the Gun Violence Reduction Strategic Plan in May, which includes 16 recommendations in attempts to lower the amount of gun violence here in the district.
We know the discussion about gun control goes beyond here in the nation's capital. It's a nationwide conversation.
That's right, Kendall. And the White House recently hosted an anti-violence summit mid-September with the objective of promoting peace in the U.S. NewsVision reporter Ianna Fenton has the story.
We must stand together. The Biden-Harris administration hosted the United We Stand Summit, a campaign to combat hate-fueled violence in the U.S. The goal of the summit is to provide the opportunity for Americans to stand together against injustice while honoring 16 uniters from across the country.
We have one common enemy, and that's hate-fueled violence.
The summit also held panels with community leaders and victims to discuss experiences and plans for the future of the Anti-Violence Initiative. President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris both gave keynote speeches highlighting their plans to prevent, respond to, and recover from hate-fueled violence, including strengthening resources available to local institutions.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All women and men are created equal, endowed by the Creator, etc. We've never lived up to that.
Never can we remember the White House having a full-day session about racism, anti-Semitism, homophobia, xenophobia. This has been a historic day.
President Biden says that today's summit is just the beginning of the anti-violence work in this country. Every American has a role to play in this cause. Reporting from the White House for Howard University NewsVision, I'm Ianna Fenton.
Up next, a look into the historical 2022 midterm elections, including the D.C. mayoral race and the Georgia Senate race.
Plus, a behind-the-scenes look into how we at Howard University covered the elections when NewsVision returns.
When HU 23 first arrived at the Mecca, we were excited to soar to new heights at the hilltop. However, our dreams were cut short due to a global pandemic. But it was there that we learned that the best news comes from any and everywhere. As a team, the Sensational Seven is now back in person and better than ever, here to bring you the best news in the capstone course. Thank you so much for staying tuned. We hope to see you watching very soon.
Midterm elections have passed, but the fight for power within Congress is what makes the Peach State the race to pay attention to. The U.S. Senate candidates Raphael Warnock and Herschel Walker are still going head-to-head in the runoff election. Republicans have taken control of the House of Representatives, and if Warnock wins, the Democrats will secure the Senate by a hair. Runoff elections take place December 6th, but early voting in the state is underway.
In Washington, D.C., voters overwhelmingly re-elected Delegate Eleanor Holmes Norton to serve as delegate to Congress. Voters in the nation's capital woke up bright and early to cast their ballot at various polling locations. One of those who cast a vote, 63-year-old Victor Johnson, who was voting for the first time because he says it's time for a change.
I voted for the kids, for a better community. I'm 63 years old, so if I don't do something now, there'll be no better time to do it than now. So I did it. I voted. It's the first time in my life I voted. I see a little bit in the people that's running for the elections,
Officials say voter turnout was high, especially in some battleground states such as Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. November 8, 2022 marked history for the state of Maryland as Wes Moore became the first black governor of Maryland, beating out Republican candidate Dan Cox. Also, the newly elected Lieutenant Governor, Aruna Miller, is the first South Asian woman to hold that position. Many Marylanders and Moore campaign supporters were gathered in Baltimore to watch this historic win. HU NewsVision reporter Aquil Starks was there.
You chose hope over fear. In Maryland, you chose Wes Moore and me to be your next governor and lieutenant governor of Maryland.
November 8, 2022 marked Maryland its first black governor, Wes Moore, and South Asian Lieutenant Governor Aruna Miller. This has been a historic win given Moore is the third black governor in the U.S., and many government officials from Kwasi Mfume to Anthony Brown celebrated his victory in Baltimore, Maryland.
And tell the story of how we got over it.
I accept the responsibility and the privilege to be your next Attorney General.
I had the opportunity to interview some of the campaign members and supporters of Wes Moore that night.
Yeah. It is a historic night, and this is an exceptional person, and Maryland is very lucky to have Wes Moore.
I mean, this is when we walked in, I said, this is not just a local event, this is a national, international event. This is history right here.
I am in Tacoma Park, Maryland, the birthplace of newly elected Governor Wes Moore. After winning, Moore plans on increasing economic growth and education opportunities for Maryland residents. This is Aquil Starks Jr. reporting for HU NewsVision.
Wes Moore is a rising star to Democrats. When sworn in, he will become the third black governor in U.S. history.
History was also made in the D.C. mayoral race. Incumbent D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser became only the second person to win 3 consecutive terms as mayor. Marion Barry was the first. On Election Day, I was there when Bowser and her daughter went to the polls to cast her vote. It's Election Day, and D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser made sure to cast her vote along with other D.C. residents early this morning at Riggs LaSalle Recreational Center.
Our primary voters were loud and clear that they wanted a seasoned leader who can make tough decisions and who they trusted to bring our city back. And that's what we're focused on, reinvesting in our public safety, our schools, our downtown and corridors and neighborhoods, and making sure every Washingtonian can participate in the progress of our city.
There are 4 mayoral candidates on this year's ballot: Stacia Hall, Dennis Sabin, and Rodney Grant. Residents at the polls seem to favor Bowser running for her 3rd term as mayor in this year's midterm election.
I like what the mayor's done in terms of running the city, especially coming out of COVID. But I would love to also see some reforms made in education as well.
When voting for the mayor, I'm really impressed with a lot of the development that Muriel Bowser has been able to manage in the district, and I think she did a really good job during the pandemic.
Although many residents are content with Bowser remaining in office, there are still many concerns. And many people are concerned about crime in the city. If re-elected, what plans do you have in place to make the citizens of D.C. feel safer?
Well, what citizens know is that they trust me to make the tough decisions that we need, for making sure, as I have fought for over the last 2 years, that we have the police officers that we need, that we have the human services supports that our young people need, and that we are making sure that we have strong laws that hold everybody accountable.
During her acceptance speech, Mayor Bowser said voters wanted a woman who, quote, knows how to start things and finish things, think big, push hard, and get things done. One of the areas of concerns for black voters is suppression at the polls. The Ronald W. Walters Center continued its 10-year run in hosting the Command Center at Howard University for the 2022 midterm elections. The center has affiliates in 10 states reporting on what's happening in their local election, and Director Dr. Elise P. Scott says nationwide what voters are seeing in their home states is concerning.
But, the people who put these laws in place and says, well, what's wrong that the turnout is greater? But in part, the turnout is greater because people feel like their rights are being taken away. And if they don't do something about it, that they will be back in post-Reconstruction era. And that's frightening.
The center focuses on collecting data and creating a database to identify Black candidates running for office, as well as identifying voter suppression issues throughout the country.
Student journalists at Howard University have been covering the midterm elections since Election Day on November 8th. The Met building served as a satellite for the major project. 3 classrooms were converted into newsrooms where over 100 students reported on the election results as they came in. Thanks to the Media, Journalism, and Film Department and special guests, students were able to publish their stories in less than 24 hours.
Now onto another issue impacting the Black community, mental health.
More Americans are starting to admit that they struggle with their mental health. According to the Mental Health America website, out of the 13.4% of African Americans in the U.S., 16% have admitted to having mental illness in the past year. That amounts to more than 7 million people.
Thankfully, there are many organizations that are providing resources to help those in need. NewsVision reporter Quam Odunsi has the story.
I think it's important to note that mental health includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. So in a nutshell, it affects how we think, how we feel, how we act.
Over 20% of Americans suffer from a mental disorder each year. In the last few years, resources have expanded to help those who struggle with their mental health.
Active Minds has different chapters nationwide, and we serve to advocate for mental health resources on all different campuses. And we also have a lot of national initiatives for and trying to reduce public stigma around mental health.
Physical activity, eating well, and good sleep are just some of the everyday things we can do to aid our mental well-being.
So I think the message for everyone, including us, is to treat mental health on the same level that you treat anything else that has to do with your health. If you're sick, you go to the doctor, right? In the same way, if your social emotional is being impacted, we want you to seek out a therapist, a counselor, a clinician, a psychologist, a psychiatrist if you feel like you may need medication.
It is important to remain educated on how we can help ourselves and our family members around us who may be struggling with their mental health. Confirming our support for them or simple check-ins such as, hey, how you doing, can go a very long way. Reporting from the nation's capital, I am Quam Odunsi with Howard University's NewsVision.
Racism is a major factor on the mental health of Black people. If you need mental health help, dial the National 988 helpline.
Howard Homecoming is back in action, plus a live interview with Larry Scott, coach of the HU football team. Don't go anywhere. NewsVision will return shortly.
Hello and welcome. My name is Ashleigh Fields and I'm a part of the Sensational Seven in the capstone class here at Howard University. And today we're going to be talking about why news matters most.
News matters to me because it is a way to inform the public and keeps the world going.
News is important because it entertains and educates our communities.
News is important because it upholds democracy.
News is important because the reality of the world that we see depends on the news that we are given.
News matters because it is important to have an accurate and unbiased source of information.
News is important because it helps serve marginalized communities.
NewsVision, brought to you by Howard University School of Communications.
We turn to sports now, and it's been a very busy season for the Bison. The Howard football team was named the MEAC champions last weekend, where they beat Morgan State in their final game of the season. The team was ranked 5th in the preseason polls and were 1-5 before the conference began. Despite being the underdogs, they were able to come out on top. The Bison football team is led by head coach Larry Scott, who joined Howard in the spring of 2020. Prior to that, he had more than 15 years of collegiate football experience.
After making it through the year of the pandemic, in 2021, he signed the highest-ranked recruiting class in the program's history.
Coach Scott is here with us today, coming off of his winning season. Coach Scott, thanks for joining us.
I appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me today.
Of course. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And how does it feel to see all your hard work pay off and to win the championship this year?
Right. It's always good to see, all the hard work and the sacrifice and the commitment that you have young people make come to fruition. We always start and we talk about keeping the end in mind and what you want that to look like. But being, willing to endure the process that it takes to get there, deal with the ebb and flows, deal with all the adversity, expect the adversity and handle it the right way, and keep moving. There's so many great lessons that come out of that, not only in the game of, football, but in the game of life. So we just kind of wrap all of that up into that and try to put these guys in the best situation that we can week in and week out and keep them believing, keep them working, keep them striving for excellence. The perseverance was there, and ultimately we ended up right where we wanted to.
And Coach Scott, what was your mindset coming in as head coach here at Howard, and what do you think you did differently compared to programs in the past?
I think we knew we had a challenge. We knew we were definitely having to build it from the bottom up. So it was important to start foundationally, right? You have to go after and capture young people's hearts, their minds, get them passionately believing again in what they're doing and why they do it, and who they do it for. So, we started things like the Bison Walk and the pride that you need to have to be a Bison, to be a Howard Bison and walk across that yard and down 6th Street, down onto Green Stadium, and what that means, and then taking advantage of that opportunity in that moment, because one day that'll be your last walk, and then to have your family and your friends and all those people there to welcome you off the bus is kind of just reinstilling the pride that it takes to do what we do here. And you should. This is one of the greatest brands in all of collegiate sport, and so you should want to represent it well, and you should be full of passion and purpose when you take the field. So. We knew we had to rebuild the minds. We knew we had to rebuild the hearts, rebuild the passion and the purpose for why you play here. And then we had to make sure we had to, started getting the surrounding infrastructure in place to provide the springboard to have that happen. So there was a lot of work to be done, but we welcomed that challenge with open arms. Was able to hire and bring a lot of really good staff with me, help bring that to fruition, and that experience helped us too.
Well, thank you so much, Coach Scott, for bringing us. It has been being here. It's been such a great time having you. And as Bison, we are so proud that you guys have won this season.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Looking forward to more in the future.
Now onto the women's basketball team here at Howard University, who is on a mission to make history for the second year in a row. After winning the MEAC championship last year, they are determined to bring home yet another conference title.
With basketball season underway, the Howard women's basketball team has been in the gym and working hard to earn yet another conference championship title.
This season, I'm mostly looking forward to running back our NCAA tournament appearance, definitely winning the MEAC again, and making as many memories as possible. This is my last year playing undergrad collegiate basketball. So.
Although the season just started, the Bison are confident that they will be back in the championship game this season and bring home the MEAC title for the second year in a row.
I could say that not everybody was checking for women's basketball. Not everybody was trying to support our games and trying to see what we were about and who we were. And towards the end of our season, definitely, people started, saying just congratulations, to be walking in the hallways, people we don't even know, just acknowledging who we are and acknowledging the fact that, we made history.
The reigning champions get in the gym early as practice starts at 6 a.m. And even though it's the holiday season, the Lady Bison are away on what they call a business trip.
It's a lot sometimes, but at the end of the day, we have one goal, and that's to win. So we're always going to come together and get the job done.
Last season, the Lady Bison became the first team in HBCU sports history to ever make it past the first round in the NCAA tournament. You can keep up with their season on hubison.com.
You can call it a national pastime, homecoming at the Mecca. This year's Howard Homecoming was the first to be fully in person after the COVID-19 pandemic. The annual fashion show kicked off the weekend ahead of the highly anticipated Yard Fest. This year's theme was the Mecca Gala and showcased looks from designers Sammy B, Mickey Taylor, and House of Delilah. To top it off, there were also surprise performances by Howard's own Ooh La La dancers and R&B artist Sir. The audience enjoyed music, dancing, and of course, innovative fashion that only Howard students can create.
The homecoming event to follow the momentum of the fashion show was Yard Fest, which draws thousands of students and others to the yard. This is where college students hoped they would get the chance to see their favorite artist put on a performance. Westley has the story.
This is the university's first in-person homecoming since 2019, shortly before the pandemic put traditions like these in the world on pause.
I'm so hyped. This is my first Yard Fest. It's living up to it, and I can't wait to keep coming back.
Last year, it was in Crampton, and we had Ray Shemmer, which was a different vibe. I've never been actually out on the yard, so I'm loving it. I performed a handful of times, but this was #1 on my bucket list.
I haven't had a homecoming since freshman year, and it's great to be back here, man. Seeing the vibe, seeing the energy, it's just something crazy.
Grammy-nominated R&B duo Chloe and Holly hosted the Campus NewsVision event. Some of the artists who performed were State Property, Jacquees, Simba, Flo Milli, and Capella Gray. The headlining act will be Glorilla.
Some encouraging words I would give to Howard students is never make a plan B, because that's not sticking to your plan A. So always believe in your goals and your dreams, no matter what nobody says. Don't let anybody's fears control your decisions on anything in life.
As you can see, Howard's Homecoming Week is still a highly anticipated event. For Howard University NewsVision, I'm Westley. You know!
When we return, the Afrobeats Fall Festival is back in DC and Christmas has officially begun at the White House, right here on NewsVision.
Kind of getting in your way, and you have to realize who you are and decide for yourself, make your own choices and your own destiny. And I think Howard's kind of taught me that. And Howard is not, I'm not talking about the administration and stuff like that, I'm talking about the students and the teachers here that really made me feel like I'm a person that gets to make my own decisions.
Actress, activist, and mental health advocate Jennifer Lewis made a visit to the Mecca. She discussed her new book, Walking in My Joy in These Streets, as well as shared her knowledge with the students.
I hope they take away that it's okay to be scared, but you must be unafraid. That foot forward has to be uncompromising. Living on purpose, writing it down, being in charge of yourself. And I hope they take away self-care so that they can enjoy the fruits of their labor. Why do all that work and you're not healthy to enjoy it?
Students were able to ask questions about her journey and enjoy a special performance from the star herself.
Over the Thanksgiving break, some Howard students traded in Thanksgiving at home to helping people in the Dominican Republic. The trip was led by Afro-American Studies professor Banikongo Nkongo to improve workers' conditions. Students spent time with the workers on the sugar plantations and helped members of the Haitian ethnic community with their cedula application process. Cedulas are documents that allow immigrants to regain basic necessities such as access to health care and public education.
Back here in the DMV, African culture took center stage as the Afro Fall Fest returned to being back in action and in person. The event took place at Elevate DC and combined different African cultures ranging from music, food, fashion, and art.
What brought me out here is I'm a small business. My business is One Way Beauty, and I'm here to help people with skin problems, hair problems, people that have problems with eczema, dry skin, and to that nature.
HU NewsVision reporter Aquil Starks was able to interview one of the local DC restaurants.
Yeah, very excited. We get out at a wine fest all over the DC, and especially out here because we give back to the community, and you know it's our folks that are out here, so we enjoy getting out and enjoying people.
This event aligns itself with the increase of in-person festivals this year and is alleviating those who feel the need to socialize again due to the pandemic.
The holiday season has begun, and just in time to start up the festivities, First Lady of the United States, Joe Biden, announced the White House theme for this year's holiday season, We the People.
This means no matter the differences in our shared traditions, our American values of belief in possibility, optimism, and unity remain the same. NewsVision reporter Quam Odunsi attended the unveiling of the White House decorations. Hi, Quam. Now, we all had an opportunity to cover the White House this semester, but what an awesome assignment.
Hi, Kendall. Yes, it was wonderful. I really enjoyed my time. The White House East Wing was beautifully decorated. Not only was it breathtaking, it also served as a way to honor traditions, members of the military, children, and nature.
Happy holidays from the White House. This year's theme, We the People. First Lady Joe Biden announced that to the nation earlier today. The White House Museum is beautifully decorated. Let's go check it out. The First Lady of the United States arrived in the East Wing around noon to greet the National Guard families, thank the 150 volunteers that decorated the East Wing for the holiday season, and to thank their peoples on her work on the White House Holiday Book.
Wow, that was so beautiful, Quam.
It was definitely a festive sight, and you couldn't help but get into the holiday spirit. Back to you two.
Now, Quam, why the theme We the People?
Good question, Kendall. The First Lady said that when our country comes together, we are stronger, and that the soul of our nation is and has always been we the people.
I just love Christmas.
It is honestly my favorite holiday.
That I can definitely agree with.
Thank you, Quam. Speaking of holidays, NewsVision wishes you a safe and happy holiday season, and we thank you all for tuning in to our final newscast. And speaking of final, this is the final step as we prepare to take our long walk as grads of the Howard University.
It's been a long road for our fall class of 22 cohort of NewsVision. We are the Sensational Seven, and we've produced this entire program. From director, producer, to teleprompter and cameras, we did it.
And we'd like to thank our professor, Jennifer Thomas, for her guidance through this newscast and this capstone class.
And a sincere thank you to our professors in the Department of Media, Journalism, and Film, the Cathy Hughes School of Communications, and WHUT. We are proud to be part of the legacy of this great institution of higher learning. I'm Milexa Cardona.
And I'm Kendall Lanier. From all of us here at NewsVision, Happy Holidays! Has been crazy, and I just feel like we just created such a special bond. Like, we're always gonna have this moment to look back, and like, we went through some of the toughest times together, but we became some of the best journalists and people.
I'm just really grateful for this team. I know a lot of it has been online, and I know I didn't get to meet a lot of y'all, at least in person, until this semester, like this year. But I'm really grateful for you guys. You guys have made my job so much easier. So I really, 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 really appreciate you guys. Like, I'm being so genuine right now. I really love you guys.